Today, we're going to spend about 10-15 minutes talking about some of the basic concepts of setting and achieving goals through the lens of IFS. So, what does it mean to have self led goals and self led behaviors when it comes to goal setting, parts that can get in the way? So, we'll talk a little bit about that from a cognitive perspective. And then we'll spend the better portion of today's hour doing an experiential exercise because one of the things that's so fascinating about IFS in general or understanding multiplicity is that it's a pretty simple model, but it's actually doing the work that makes things a little bit juicier, a little bit more complicated when it comes to that. So we're going to spend the bulk of our time today doing a really, I think, fun experiential exercise to help you get in touch with what comes up inside you, building that awareness of the different experiences and goal setting for you, and then helping you to get to know a little bit more about one particular part of you that comes up in this experiential and responding from a little bit more of a self-led place. And then we'll have the opportunity to do some sharing at the end. So it's really important that we connect as a community. And we'll take about 10 minutes at the end to talk about that. And then for those of you who are interested in continuing this work after our time together today, I'll give you a few tools to take on the road with you. So this class is a little bit larger today, but I still want to welcome. I'm a pretty interactive teacher, speaker, whatever you want to call it. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I am always checking the chat as we're going along. So if you have questions that come up about specific things, great. And if I don't answer them, I will try and answer them at the end of our time together today. So I am going to let a couple more people in. So a little bit about me, for those of you who don't know me. Hi, my name is Sarah Houy. I am the co-founder and co-CEO. Hi, I see waves. Co-founder and co-CEO of Sentur Health. I am a certified IFS therapist and consultant in Denver, Colorado, and I've been a trauma therapist for about 13, 14 years now. And my whole entire career has been dedicated to helping people go from suffering to thriving. And my latest creative pursuit is this Sentur Health platform. I also am trained in a lot of different trauma treatment modalities, and my passion is really integration of what works, when, where, and why, and how do we use those tools appropriately in trauma recovery. So that's a little bit about me, but I want to talk about Mia to begin with. So when we start thinking about goal setting, it's a really, really common experience that we set goals from parts, right? So we set goals from parts, and I put together a little bit of a mock kind of demo here about what I hear in my practice, what I know can be true in myself of, Mia is somebody who is struggling with work stress. She's not sleeping well. She's overwhelmed, and her goal is to stop drinking as frequently throughout the week because she's heard on a podcast and on Instagram that drinking interferes with your sleep. So here's Mia, beginning of 2024. She's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to stop doing my drinking as frequently throughout the week because I'm so stressed out. I just want to be better. I'm going to do better. And here it is. And what ends up happening is that Mia's inner dialogue is a little bit different than that, right? So what is a typical or can be a typical inner dialogue when we start to set goals is that we will have an inner critic. The degree to which it is harsh is kind of dependent on other people's systems. But Mia's inner dialogue in setting this goal for herself is a little bit more along the lines of this is so ridiculous that I'm drinking too much. I have to stop. I can't believe I'm such a loser who can't control herself. If you don't stop drinking, you're never going to lose the weight. So I'm going to do this, right? On the surface, she'll probably tell people like, yay, I'm going to go do this and I'm going to stop drinking. But inside, in these moments, as she's going to sleep, as she's driving her car, as she's getting ready in the morning, there is most likely a part who is going to be driving that inner dialogue, right? Coming in with that inner criticism. Now, this is a very simplified version. What comes up in your system will probably have a few more layers and players to this than that. But in response to that, in IFS, we have two different types of parts. We have managers and we have exiles. And within the two different types of protectors, we have two different types of parts. We have protectors and we have exiles. Within protectors, we have managers and we have firefighters. So what ends up happening if you overload one specific side of your system, i.e., your inner critic is really loud, if you overload that side of the system, you're going to trigger some firefighter behavior that's going to come in response to this, right? So in this, her inner critic really thinks that it's doing a good job of trying to help her achieve these goals of stopping drinking, right? Because we know in many cultures that shaming has been a very common way to try and incite behavior change. So parts are not the problem, it's the burdens they carry. This inner critic is really trying to help, but what it ends up doing in Mia is it ends up bringing out even more firefighter behavior activity, right? So she ends up having more drinking, more things that are going on. And the more she drinks, the more critical of herself she is, and the more critical of herself she is, the more she drinks. And yet, from this place, this is where she set the goal, right? You have to stop doing this. There's no way you can't continue this moving forward. And so in that place, right, this part that, comes out secondarily here, this firefighter of I can't handle it, right? I really said I was going to not drink during the week, but it's already been a stressful week. I can't handle it. I have to have a drink. One won't kill me. I might die if I don't ease the stress. I just have to be able to get a little bit of spaciousness. And so when we start thinking about, these goal settings and how things like yo-yo dieting happen and how things where, everybody falls off of their journey, starting at the beginning of February, sometimes even the middle of January, most of the time I get curious around who or what energy has set that goal, right? And so you'll notice in this dialogue that I didn't even mention the exile down here, but oftentimes when we think about exiles, there's kind of 4 different categories of exiles. But a lot of the time it can be due to shame, right? So a part that will come in and, that is holding on to the pain of I'm not enough, I'm not capable, I'm not lovable. And in response to that, we get these protectors that will come in and try and protect us from that pain. So if this is your first introduction to IFS, you're drinking from a fire hose right now. I realize that we have lots more tools and things to give you access to IFS at a little bit of a smaller pace. But I just wanted to bring up this concept of goal setting, this topic of goal setting through the lens of IFS and open it up. Has anybody thought about this, or what has been your experience of, goal setting and how to use the lens of IFS? And you can feel free to drop it in the chat or unmute yourself.
Yeah, I've definitely
Oh,
pondered the idea of that. Can you hear me okay?
a little bit louder. It might be me.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I've definitely pondered how parts will inspire goals, and what is going to be the result of that if it's not coming out of authentic self. And so, yeah, it's nice to hear you kind of go a little deeper into that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what you were saying of, how does it impact the results? What will end up happening is that, back and forth between manager and firefighter behavior, where you yo-yo diet, you yo-yo recover, right? You yo-yo whatever it is, where like you can, shame yourself enough into submission for a certain period of time, but then you're just literally front loading that firefighter to come out if you haven't really addressed those things and asked those parts to open up space, right? And this is a tricky one when we come to talking about goal setting from a self-led place, because managers often show up very self-like, right? Cheerleaders and workaholics and all these parts that can come in with all these really great, like, we could do this and we're going to do this. And that's great, but it's probably not self, right? And so one of my hacks that I use really quickly for myself and with my clients of the energy of like, where is this coming from is my collarbones, right? If this energy shuts my collarbones down or brings tension into the system, it's probably not self energy for me, right? If I notice that my collarbones can open a little bit more easily, even if it's something big, like I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of a mental health software company. I mean, that's not like easy potatoes to try and walk into. But if you can notice where that comes to, that self energy is going to be a little bit more softening, a little bit more opening of the collarbones, even if the thing or the goal, if your goal is to run a marathon or climb Everest or whatever, as long as that, it doesn't matter what the goal is, as long as that energy that's driving it is a little bit more opening to the collarbones and a little bit more softening to the shoulders. So good. I'm going to give you a little bit of a visual here, right? So getting to know her parts, it's essential that Mia is able to start building a trusting relationship with these parts of herself, because in order to be able to gain access to her self energy, which one of the things that I absolutely adore about the IFS model is that it is a constraint release model, not a deficit model. So it's about opening up access to what is already there, not building something up which you don't already have, right? So it's opening up access to that clarity. It's opening up access to that confidence that's already within Mia, within you, within me, within all people. And helping her to do that is going to give her access to this fourth voice here, right? This energy that can show up and say, hey, let's look at these goals. And I have a different or maybe a slightly modified version of how we're going to go with this. So the way you get access to that self-leadership is through unblending and befriending. So that's exactly what this stop, drop, roll exercise is designed to do. It's something that you can do on your own. You can do it. We'll do all the steps together in a 30-minute time frame today. You can do them over a period of several days if you want. But this is a really great experiential exercise to help you unblend and befriend what's going on with whatever topic it is. We're just going to do goal setting today, or if you want to do a different topic, you can do that as well. But I find that for people, most people, the traditional way of unblending and befriending in IFS is eyes closed, and you have somebody there to help you work through that process. And the large reality is that doing that process on our own with our eyes closed and facilitating that on our own is really challenging and inaccessible for many of us, myself included, even as a certified IFS therapist. So breaking it down into steps and having something where you can walk through with some writing is really helpful for a certain group of people. So in that, as we go through this, just to give you kind of a brief overview of the exercises, there's 3 different phases, as the name implies, of stop, drop, roll, respond. The thing about it is you guys have already done step 1. So you've already stopped, which is 100% the hardest part of this entire exercise, is actually creating the time to stop and care for yourself in the way that you need to. And so being able to stop right now, you've already successfully completed step 1. So good on all of you. And then, generally speaking, it takes about 30 minutes, but I have sessions that I do this with. This is a practice I do myself often, that I can spend 20, 30 minutes on some of these steps over a period of days. So we're gonna do it a little bit condensed today, but and it's a combination of writing. So some of it you'll be writing, and some of it I'll ask you to drop your gaze and go inside for, a meditation experiential. So before we get started, are we sharing these slides later? Yes, I can share the slides later, and I'm recording it for those who cannot be here and for those of you who are ferociously trying to take notes. So it'll be on our YouTube video a little bit later, because we've done this before. It's on our YouTube channel, but this is a slightly different version where we're talking about it specifically from the experience of setting goals. So yes, you'll have slides and you'll have the live version of this. So let's go ahead and get started. With your piece of paper, I want you to take it and fold it into thirds, kind of like a hot dog bun. Or at least that's how I was always told in school, that you fold it like a hot dog bun. And Liv, I'll also let you know that this document will be on our website later on I think our lovely marketing person is going to put it on tomorrow. This will be available for download on our website. So if you're wanting to have the directions to follow along while you're doing it after this, that will be available for you as well. So now that you've got your paper folded into your 3, I want you to pay attention to the left hand column for this first. So stop, drop. So the drop part, I want you to free write for 5 minutes about, it might be the goal that you are trying to achieve. It might be goal setting in general, or it might be a topic totally different that your system would ask you to do. But the free write is just keep writing, don't stop writing, don't filter anything, just let whatever needs to happen, happen. And we'll do that for about 5 minutes. I'll play some of the music in the background and then let you know when you have about a minute left. All right. So from here, one of the questions that I get asked all the time is, how do I know what's a part, what's not a part, how do we know what is a part? What is a part? And I find that taking this free write exercise and starting to look at what you naturally wrote, what naturally came out of you, and starting to filter it through the lens of a couple different things. Body sensations, which is not one that's forward. Sometimes people will naturally write, I feel like I just want to throw up, or I feel like I'm going to pass out, or I feel like I could just, explode. Like sometimes body sensations are forward, but oftentimes it will come through emotions and beliefs, right? So we know that all of our parts are sub-personalities and they all have their own unique perspectives, emotions, beliefs, body sensations in the world, similar to us as human beings. So for this second set, I want you still on the left-hand side, I want you to go through and I want you to underline all of the thoughts and beliefs. And I want you to circle all the emotions and body sensations. And if you are familiar with parts or familiar with your parts, you might be able to start to even notice a part of you that shows up. So for example, in this exercise right here, you'll see that I have identified this part. It's a belief, but I also know this part of myself pretty well. This is my pessimistic protector that will get pessimistic about anything, right? That's like climb Everest. And it's like, that's definitely not going to happen for you. So like, don't do that. That's a terrible idea. So you can kind of just notice and tag parts. If you don't have that type of understanding of your system yet, it's totally fine. Just circle the body sensations and the emotions and underline the beliefs. And I'll give you about another 30 seconds to do that. Okay. Moving on. So one of the things that can trip people up in working with their systems is, and this is very common. So if this is your experience where it's like, oh my gosh, I go inside and everybody's talking at once. There's 20 people, there's 5 people, there's so many different things that are going on inside. Taking a moment and starting to notice where on that left-hand side your awareness is naturally drawn, right? So it might be a specific part, it might be a certain body sensation or an emotion or a belief or whatever it is. But taking and noticing when you really scan this experience here, like things you just can't look away from, the thing that you just keep returning to. So just taking about the next 45 or so seconds, minute to notice where your attention is naturally drawn on that left-hand side. And then here is one of the things in IFS that I think sets the tone for the gentleness and kindness of the IFS way of self-reflection, right? Is that we always want to pause, right? So in looking at this is everything that, well, maybe not everything, whatever came out in those 3 or 4 minutes, but this is the stuff that's going on inside you. Here's maybe the different breakdowns of it. And in IFS, it's really important that we pause and make sure we have permission to focus on that start experience, right? So for example, here with the anger, I'm going to pause and I'm going to check inside and I'm going to just ask internally if there are any fears or concerns that my system has with me bringing some awareness to this anger. And if the answer is no, it's fine. Great. You can just let your system know you've received that. If the answer is, yeah, that actually doesn't work. I'm scared for you to be with that anger. Oftentimes you're going to hear a couple different responses about what the fear is, that they're afraid it's going to overwhelm you, or that something terrible will happen and you will be off kilter in some way. So today's experiential is not really aimed at what do you do if you have fears or concerns with being with a part. We're actually going to talk a little bit about that in next month's exercise that we're going to do. And we'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow in the Sentur Foundations class about how to get to know a part a little bit more. But it's really important. So I want you to, for the next 60 seconds, I want you to drop that awareness inside and just asking internally if there's any fears or concerns with you being with this aspect of your experience, the body sensation, emotion, part, belief. And if the answer is yes, just see if you can stay there and witness those fears or concerns and see if you can address anything that they might need in that. Right, so we'll go ahead and move on to the middle column now, assuming that you have gotten permission to work with the part that you or the aspect of your experience that you are noticing. And this is, for some people, the most fun part of the exercise. And for some people, it is the most annoying and agitating and frustrating part of the exercise because there is the invitation, if you'd like, to notice with your non-dominant hand. So if you're normally right-handed, it's going to be your left hand, but you're going to take that aspect of your experience. So you'll see on here that anger is the experience that I noticed in the left-hand column. In the middle column here, you can just write anger at the top or whatever it is. And with your non-dominant hand, you're going to ask that anger. You're going to kind of buy it like a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. You're going to ask that anger, what else do you want me to know? I'm here, I'm listening. What else do you want me to know? It can show you body sensations. It can show you more images. It can write out words. It can do whatever it wants to do. But you're going to, with your non-dominant hand, just write for the next 3-4 minutes, write whatever it is that comes up. Now, if you notice that you have an inner critic that's like, oh my God, I can't do that because my writing is just going to be total crap and it's blah, blah. If that's getting in the way of it, like, it's fine. Do your dominant hand. But for the next 3-4 minutes, I want you to just continue to open up with as much open-heartedness as you have access to and ask that part, that experience, what else it is it wants you to know. Buy it a cup of tea, buy it a cup of coffee. Stay with the fears or concerns until you get that permission. So if the fears or concerns, you're going to keep witnessing the parts that have the fears and concerns. And you could take the fears and concerns and put them right up here, right? So if you have a part that's afraid, okay, well, what do you want me to know about that, right? If you have parts that have concerns, you could write concern up here. And what do you want me to know about that? So it just shifts the target to the fear or concern versus the part that you were thinking you were going to connect with. Taking just about 15, 20 more seconds to finish up your train of thought. And then this is the $1,000,000 question in IFS, that one of the things that really separates IFS out from quite literally any other psychotherapeutic evidence-based model, as well as within other parts models. So for those of you that are mental health practitioners and might be familiar with ego state work or structural theory of dissociation, other models of multiplicity, they do not ever ask this question, which is, how do you feel toward this experience? How do you feel toward this part? So thinking about or looking at this middle aspect here. And one of the things I like about experientials and actually tactile things is that you can hold it out in front of you, right? While if you're doing this inside, it can get a little muddled. So taking a moment and just seeing how you're feeling toward this experience in the middle portion of your piece of paper. And common responses are curiosity, compassion, creativity, connectedness. Great. That's probably a little bit more toward the self energy side, the open-heartedness. And on the other side, we have common parts that will show up in response to things. So criticism is a very common one, looking at this and going, that's disgusting. I cannot believe I feel so angry and I'm such a mess about that. Or one of the really fun ones is getting angry at your anger, right? And then it's this like, reflecting mirror for forever. Or parts that are like, I don't even want to look at that. I can't even look at it. I can't even see it. I don't even want to go there. So just taking a moment, again, a mixture of eyes open or eyes closed, and just seeing how you're feeling toward that experience in the middle. And if you're noticing you're feeling curiosity, open-heartedness, those collarbones are soft, just go ahead and extend that energy to this part in whatever way that feels right inside. And if you're feeling avoidant, numb, critical, angry, anything that feels like it's blocking the experience between your self-energy and this part of you, just ask it to see if it can open up some space just for the next 6 or 7 minutes. It doesn't have to, it can go right back in afterward, just this little mini experiment. And it can see whether you feel better or worse after doing that, after you have gotten some space from it. So if that part of you has opened up that was maybe blocking or interfering with your self to part connection, just thank it for that. And then we'll move on to our final step in this, which is the respond part here, right? So for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and have you write a letter from access to that highest, wisest self, the open-heartedness, the curiosity, the compassion inside of you, to whatever degree you have available right now. So sometimes as people do this, they might not have as much access as they want to. One of the hacks to kind of get in a little bit more is to, if you're struggling with finding that compassionate, highest, wisest self, is to think about what you were to say if you had a dear friend who was speaking like this to you, right? If they were talking about how angry they were, frustrated they were, you're probably not going to respond with, well, you're an idiot, or you're so dumb, or I can't believe you feel this way. You would probably respond with, gosh, it makes a lot of sense why you're so angry. Like, I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Tell me more. What's going on, right? So just that compassionate, friendly, open-hearted energy. And on this right-hand column here, you're going to write a letter to the experience in the center here. Go ahead and play the music for the last 4 minutes or so here, and then we'll have an opportunity to start our closing and share. Taking about another 30 seconds to finish up your last thoughts here. So as we close, you might notice that you're still feverishly writing on this side right here. Like you just can't get enough. You just have so many things you want to say and it's just coming out of you. Great. You might notice that in the column on the left-hand side, that was actually the experience you had where there was so many things you wanted to say and you just wanted to keep writing and you didn't want to stop writing. There was so much there. Some days, some topics, some experiences, you'll notice that this is the column that's super full, that's super busy. And some days you'll notice this is the column that's super full and super busy, and it'll flip-flop between the two. So just really normalizing that if there was just a couple sentences that you were able to write, great. If it felt like you wanted to write for the next 20 minutes and you're going to do so, that's amazing as well. So just taking a moment, and as we start to close this exercise, again, closing the eyes or dropping the gaze and really honoring the fact that you did the hardest thing about all of this, which is stopping your life, creating space for you to go inside and explore the experience of goal setting and who is there, what shows up, how do you feel toward it? What does that part of you need? And being able to respond from that self-compassionate, open-hearted place. So just offering up gratitude for creating that space, the parts of you that helped you do that, and offering up gratitude for all the parts who opened up space for you to be here today. It's really a team experience to be able to get even just a drop of spaciousness in our system to bring more curiosity inside. Just taking a breath or two to honor with some gratitude. And honoring everyone who is on this call today, that they are showing up. We are showing up as a collective community, increasing our access to our self-energy inside and sharing that with the world around us. And then when you're ready, I'll go ahead and invite you to open your eyes. And I'm going to stop the recording because we're going to go ahead and share here. So where do you go from here? It's really important that you continue to build the relationship. So spending one time, even if it's 30 minutes or 45 minutes connecting with a part, is never going to get you to the type of collaborative relationship you're looking for. It would be like saying if you went out on one date with somebody you are interested in, that was going to be the foundation of an incredible relationship that you were going to have. You and I both know that that's not true. So the intention is to be able to continue to build this relationship with this part of you, being able to become aware of how it shows up in your body, the beliefs that it holds, the emotions that it holds, similar to what we did in the exercise today, as well as having that part be able to start to trust you, your authentic self, when it's able to become unblended. So the IFS principle is liberation and integration, not elimination. Our intention is not to get rid of parts. Our intention is to liberate them. And then once they're liberated, reintegrate them into the system to be incredibly useful powerhouses for your inner and outer worlds. And that is what Sentur's intention is. Our mission is to be able to provide comprehensive, accessible IFS tools and resources to you on demand in the palm of your hand 24/7, because we are so deeply dedicated to being able to facilitate that relationship between you and your parts and really help them on that journey from suffering to thriving so that you can integrate them into your life as daily resources. We're a place to have more peace. Our 95.5% effective I'm struggling tool is the go-to thing that you're going to want when you are struggling with a trigger or when you're upset about something. It's going to walk you through an IFS process when you're triggered on how to unblend and befriend and get a little bit more energy around that self-energy on board. And it's your path. There's a lot of different parts that are going on, a lot of different things that are happening. And in order to be able to make multiple relationships grow within you with multiple different parts at the same time, it's really helpful to be able to honor those parts' requests with our your journey feature. So right on the home screen, it'll tell you what to do next with what part, as well as a topic or a trailhead that you're working with. So if you're really trying to make some shifts in, let's say, your relationship with money, and you've set the intention to check in with that 5 times over the next month, then it's going to pull that up and give you a customized meditation for that particular topic or trailhead that you're working at. We also are one place for everything in your multiplicity journey. So all of your parts map, the journaling through a lens of multiplicity, the trailhead tracking, being able to access self-energy assessments, because when you understand multiplicity, you understand yourself in a very different way. So journaling is not just journaling, it's journaling through the lens of parts and what part is speaking and self, and where is my access to self-energy and things like that. So we have very intentionally created the experience of self-reflection and self-transformation, everything being built through that lens of multiplicity. And then we're really excited to announce the last piece that I'll talk about here, which is we offer a place to have your people. So similar to the experience of self-reflection being very unique in the journey of multiplicity, the experience of community is very different when you are talking about the experience of multiplicity. So let's say you're in a Facebook group that's talking about, how to handle stress. Well, how to handle stress through a different method looks very, very different than it does through IFS, right? In IFS, or this lens of multiplicity, we would say that it's really important that you're able to go inside and get curious toward what is going on and ask that part to give you some space so that you can get in relationship to it. And so when you start having these parts that you get to know, and you're talking about your inner critic or the part of you that self-harms, or the different aspects of yourself, and you really honor them as the subpersonalities that they are, it's a very different experience. And so it's really nice to be able to have a community of other people who also speak parts and speak self and see the world in the way that you do. So we now have an international community where you all can come together and talk about things through that lens of multiplicity. It's a free 14-day trial. Check it out. We would encourage you. We are here to support you as you are on this journey of self-transformation. As always, our community events are free every single month. And please feel free to reach out to us if you have any other questions.